This is Festival Past Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next.
All right, folks, welcome back. This is Festival Past Stories, a podcast series. It's told by the people who create and make festivals and great live events come to life. We take you behind the stage, the kitchen, the studio door to hear those stories of passion and inspiration that is behind some of the world's greatest festivals, most beloved festivals. And you can't have a festival or a live event without a great venue. And today we are talking about one of the greatest venues and one of the greatest venue owners in one of the best cities in the United States, Denver. Please welcome the founder of the Denver's Levitt Pavilion, Chris Zacher. Chris, what's happening?
Just trying to move along, man. Get things going. Antsy.
It's a very loaded question these days. I understand that. When you ask somebody in the year 2020, how are you? They're like, how much time do we have? And don't let me check my email during this conversation because I could be in a completely different mood or have a completely different answer to that question.
Changes every 5 minutes. It's we go through plans all the time, and it seems like every 3 days they change. So yeah, totally.
It's like the weather. So how's the weather in Denver? Well, just wait 5 minutes. In some places, people say that where the weather will change every 5 minutes. So I'm going to get right into this, Chris. The people, and I mean the people, they say that you're a champion of live music. Man, we need live music champions right now. And you want to make that live music accessible to everybody, which is a very noble statement. But how do you do that and turn a profit as well?
Yeah, so we operate a flex space amphitheater that we built in conjunction with the city and county of Denver, and it's anywhere from 3,500 to 12,000. And we produce 50 free concerts a year for our community of high quality concerts, mainly emerging artists or kind of older artists that are on the downslope of their career. But our real big focus is on cutting breaks for artists. So we fund that through multiple avenues, grants, donations, on-site F&B sales. And then we have a partnership with Live Nation, and they utilize our venue to bring in larger names on big ticketed shows. And that's really one of the big revenue drivers for us. About 40% of our yearly budget is directly tied to these bigger produced shows.
So if this was normal times, you would be having festivals, if you will, or live concerts, or a series of live events all summer long.
Yeah, we would have roughly, somewhere between 70 and 80 events a year, depending on the year and bookings and how that whole process works out.
There are some great summer cities in the U.S. Chicago, I'm going to say, is number one, but Denver is in the top three. It is such a great place to be in the summer. I remember going there with the founder of Festival Pass, actually. We went to see a show at Red Rocks, went to see a Coors Light Mountain Jam at Red Rocks.
Nice.
This was years ago. And we, mountain biked in Vail, and we're like, what a great place to be. Denver, Colorado in general, but we stayed in downtown Denver. We had an unbelievable weekend. It was great.
Yeah, it's always sunny here. 300 days of sunshine a year. When it rains, it's a 20, 30 minute affair. So, and when the sun goes down, the temperature always drops 20 degrees. So summer nights, 68 degrees, no rain. It's perfect.
Like Mitch from Old School. Denver, gorgeous, sunshine state. That was... You may have been misquoted by the state motto, but that's okay.
It's colorful Colorado.
Colorful Colorado.
Colorful Colorado.
I like that. Is that new? Is it? When did it become colorful Colorado?
I think like when you come in the state borders and you see those signs, it's always welcome to colorful Colorado. I'm not sure, as long as I can remember.
I want to talk about the City Park Jazz Festival. Did you start that festival?
No, that festival actually started in 1985. I joined the group in 2006. I moved to Denver in 2005 from St. Louis, and joined the group at City Park Jazz. And it was it's a free jazz event. At the time when I joined, they were getting maybe like 500 people a week. It's a 10-week festival. And in 2 years, we took that from 500 people a week to 12,000 people a week. And it's really become a staple in the city.
Chris, I saw a great piece about City Park Jazz, and you didn't start this, but when you got there to when you left, bring us through the growth of City Park Jazz in Denver.
Yeah, so when I joined, so City Park Jazz started in 1985, and it's a 10-week long jazz festival. Yeah, and at the time, Denver's City Park, which would be akin to like Central Park in New York, although in a much smaller scale. It's where our zoo is, and a lot of our museums are in there. And that it was not a very safe place to be. So they wanted to start a music series to kind of bring the neighborhood together and reclaim that park as a safe environment for families. By the time I joined in 2006, it was a well-established event, although its attendance numbers were not anything to, they were great. There were 400 or 500 people a week, which, if you're a club, that's a great number, but this is a gigantic outdoor space in a park. So we kind of reimagined it. Once I came on board, I brought a couple other people, a new talent booker, and somebody to run our community outreach. And we just reimagined what it could be. And working on this focus of, we really need to start targeting these younger demos in their early 20s. And as they get married and they grow with us, then their kids will grow with us. In 2006, most of our audience was 60 plus. So it took about 2 or 3 years to flip that demo. And we went from the 500 a week to 12,000 a week. And it's still on that trajectory, still moving strong. It was until COVID, I should say.
Right.
First time since 85 this year that they won't have a series.
500 people to 12,000 a week. That's you should just have that on LinkedIn. Just say, "Hi, my name is Chris Zacher. I did this. If you need somebody, hire me, and my fee is $25,000 an hour."
It's not always an easy thing to do. It's I think every situation's different. Every place you go is different. It just, everything came together. We hit a recession, and at the same time, Denver was becoming like the city to move to. So, it's just all the ingredients were ready to mix into the bowl, and we were able to put them together.
So you made it not only popular, but sustainable all the way up until everything was sustainable until COVID, of course. We'll get into more of the COVID stuff in a minute, but I just saw that recently on their website, they just announced their 2020 virtual concert series. Are you still consulting with them on this type of thing, or is that something they came up with on their own, or did they come to you and say, how do we draw people to a virtual event now?
No, there's a couple people there that I still talk with, and I left in 2014. So wait, did I leave? No, I left in 2016. Sorry, I left in 2016
the halcyon days of 2016.
Yeah.
Bring me back.
I was there for 10 years, and I left, and I did some consulting for a few months after that. And then when I started Levitt Pavilion, were very similar types of things in that they're these free community events. I felt like I really needed to remove myself from City Park Jazz and put all my focus into Levitt at that point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which brings me up to a little bit of a timeline in your career. And I'm going to embarrass you a little bit and talk about some of these awards that you have won. And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you want to add some additional awards into this, People's Sexiest Man, whatever you want, you throw that in there. But from what I saw is that this was the trajectory of your career leading up to this, to the move to Levitt. In 2013, you were named to the 40 under 40 in Denver. Then also you were named one of the four most influential people in the Denver entertainment community in 2014. And then in 2015, you received this Cultural Leadership Award. And of course, as you said yourself, in 2016, you then left and opened up Levitt Pavilion. So just wanted to ask, with your profile on the rise, did you say this is the time to make that leap and go out and start this entrepreneurial venture? Or was this something maybe that you were building up for a couple of years?
I actually started the Levitt project in 2012. So we formed the nonprofit and went through a public-private partnership deal with the city and county of Denver in the fall of 2012. And then we opened in July of 2017. And the idea for Levitt really started in July of 2012. So we were exactly like, perfect amount of years and time to get it going. At the same time, I was still working on City Park Jazz. I don't think about career trajectory.
No.
I don't. I'm not one of those people. I was bored and had an opportunity to do something really cool. I think when you've been working at a venue for a long time or on a festival for a long time, it becomes routine, and it can become not challenging anymore. Looking for the right word to use there, but and I wanted a challenge. I went through and built City Park Jazz, and it was stabilized. So what do you do next? So it wasn't a thought process of, I need more money or I need to branch out and do other things. It was an opportunity presented itself and was like, all right, let's just roll with it.
And then take me back a little bit further. Was there a mentor who got you into the music business in the first place? Or was it is music in your DNA? Or how did you end up, sometimes like with auctioneering, I got into this by accident. I never thought I would do this. And it was a side gig for a long time, and then became my full-time gig because I really enjoyed it. And it turns out I was pretty decent at it too. But it wasn't like, there was nobody out there who was like, you'd be great at that, standing in front of a room and barking at people for money. And it just happened to be a situation where somebody didn't show up for an event that I was hosting. I know you do a lot for Denver nonprofits, and I was hosting an event for a nonprofit and the auctioneer didn't show up. There was miscommunication, whatever it was. I did the auction and I got a total high off of it. And afterwards it just became a side gig, which then eventually became a full-time gig. But how did music come into your life as a career?
Wow, I like you. I think I just walked ass backwards into it. I have a master's degree in accounting and finance, and I never really wanted to do
that. Naturally, public free jazz. Yeah,
it just felt like you go to I'm a Gen Xer, and we had our paths that our parents set out for us. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a good job, you get married, get a house. And I think that I tried to follow that pathway for a while and was like, this just isn't for me. I have to find something else. And I come from an artistic family and a musical family, and was always interested in figuring out, is it possible to have this long-term career in nonprofit music or not? And I had an opportunity to join City Park Jazz, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. It's funny because I teach at the University of Colorado, Denver, in their music and entertainment management studies program. I teach venue and festival management. And I'm teaching these kids that are going to school to do something that I do that's so hard to get a job in, where you can actually make a living. Yeah. Yet I don't have that degree, and I wasn't pursuing it at their age. And I really commend this younger generation of following their pathway.
This young generation gets knocked for a lot of things. People call them snowflakes and so on. And I roll my eyes at a lot of stuff as well. But the fact that even when you look out on the streets now with the protests that are going on and the diversity of the group and the youth of the people out there, and then on top of that, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and I was saying they're standing up at their companies and they're walking out of their jobs because they don't agree with policies. Like, I worked at a Wall Street firm, and it was like money, money, money. And they're working at public companies like Facebook, and they're like, we don't agree with this. We don't agree with your policy on hate speech. And we're walking out. We think sponsors should walk out too, knowing it's going to affect their salaries and knowing that's going to affect their 401ks. And these kids all have stock options in these companies. And they're like, we care more about something bigger. And I'm like, I didn't. I cared about paying my rent. And so on. And I'm like, man, these younger kids just have so much more guts than I do at their age.
I think maybe in a lot of ways, though, our generation really helped to give those kids those guts, because I remember, getting my first job, real job at 19 years old. And our father's generation wasn't like we are with our children. And they're taught from a very young age to stand up for themselves, don't allow themselves to be bullied. We weren't really taught that. And so I think, we really helped pave the way for them. I'm not taking credit for what they're doing. I think it's wonderful. And I wish that we would have had more guts as Gen Xers to be like, yeah, fuck you guys. We're going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah. And, I got out of school and I found a job with this small software company. It was the internet software company. This is like 1996. They talk about the old days here, but
AOL days.
Yeah. And it was like, my parents were like, is this a real career? And it wasn't like, go for it if you really think this is going to be a great thing. And but kids are taking jobs based on not only a good salary. If you want to live in New York or Denver or Chicago or a great big city, you have to make a good living. But they're also saying, well, what does this company stand for? What are they behind? What are the products that we're selling? So I commend them. And I was going to say that you've got enough on your plate already, but you're also teaching at Colorado. Now, are they having you do any of these lectures virtually, or is it just we're going to punt until we can get back in the classroom?
No, so starting in March when COVID hit, I want to say that a week after everything started hitting big in New York, University of Colorado went fully online, which is pretty difficult, teaching Zoom classes, especially the way that my class is set up. And it's hard for a professor to pivot in the midst of a semester.
The quarantine buzzword of the year is pivot. Pivot will be Time Magazine's word of the year. If they don't have a person of the year, they'll have a word of the year. It'll be pivot.
So then, we made it through the end of the semester. So it was about half the semester was in these Zoom classes. And we received surveys back from the university and said, do you have to teach your class in person, or can it be done online, or a combination of the two? And most of them for this fall semester are online. It's only like a performance-based class where, you have to be in a studio. Will you be, or in like a chemistry lab? So it's all going to be online, I think, at least for this fall semester, and who knows how much longer. We're not very good at following direction as Americans. So this could go on for years.
Yeah. The fact that there's like this crazy debate about masks and anti-masks, and, as you said before, New York and Florida, people travel between those two states so much. And right now in Florida, there's areas, I saw this story in Orlando yesterday where people were like at a grilled cheese restaurant. They're like, this is America. This isn't China. This isn't communist China. We don't have to wear a mask. It's like,
it's insane.
What? In fact, in communist China, they've been wearing masks for years because they're always worried about these, different bacteria in the air and so on. But I just thought it's amazing that this has become a political issue. And I know why, because it was politicized from the very top, and a lot of the supporters of the president happen to be in Florida. Not generalizing, it's just that
fact.
Look at data, it's pretty true. And I know some of them. But the fact that when he just wore a mask in public for the first time, it's not really a surprise. I scratch my head as a reasonable person. I say, I care about the person to my left and my right. So I'm going to wear a mask so I in case I'm walking around and I'm asymptomatic and I have this, and I could give it to somebody who's older than me or has a pre-existing condition. It could be susceptible. So it is just amazing that we're having a problem caring about our fellow American in the restaurant sitting next to us. And there are actual protests going on to support that idea.
Well, and this
off topic there. Sorry.
Yeah, but this is actually really not off topic when we're talking about music venues and getting back to work and bringing people back into venues. If people don't want to wear a mask to go to the grocery store or to stop by a Chipotle, I don't know if they're a sponsor. I could use something else. Taco restaurant.
Chipotle. Good. I don't even know if that's their slogan.
Yeah.
Chipotle, we are taking sponsorships, just letting you know. We'll take shares. We'll take whatever you have. You can pay us in burritos. We'll take it.
How are we as venue owners and promoters and festival owners, how is that going to affect us when we open? Because it's our goal to entertain, but at the same point in time, we bring security personnel in to make sure there aren't fights and people aren't getting stabbed. And we look through, we use metal detectors to make sure people don't bring guns in. When the lights go out inside a venue or when it gets dark at night and those people start removing their masks, we're talking about a whole nother level of issues that we haven't had to deal with yet. We've seen it at restaurants and at the Trader Joe's and all of that, but we haven't, the major venues haven't opened back up yet. And what is that going to look like? And how are we going to deal with that? It's hard enough to get a drunk guy a drunk guy comes to the bar and wants to buy another beer. It's hard enough, that argument that he's having with the bartender when they try to cut him off. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when you're told to put a mask on.
Which draws us right into the conversation about NEVA, where you guys started this, I think, around St. Patrick's Day. Mm-hmm. And now you have over 2,000 representatives, 2,000 independent venues. And for friends who don't know what NEVA is an organization, the National Independent Venues Association. We're talking about small stages to medium-sized stages, independent venue owners like Levitt Pavilion across the U.S., and they are now represented and have members in all 50 states, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. How quickly. You guys should all run for office because you just put something together so quickly and got rid of the red tape. And I know that you have representatives now in Washington fighting on your behalf, and you're the co-captain of NEVA in Colorado. So what is happening right now with NEVA in Colorado and then NEVA nationally?
Yeah, so in Colorado right now, it's such a difficult time with COVID. I hate all these buzzwords. I just used one that people, it's a difficult time, these trying times.
What's the path forward?
We're pivoting. The state of Colorado had to, go back and revamp their budget for this year due to anticipated tax losses, which are now real tax losses. And Colorado Creative Industries is the one organization funded by the state of Colorado that works with artists, independent artists and venues on a multitude of things. They were already underfunded. I believe their total funding was like $2.5 million a year, and that includes their staffing. Wow. So they were already kind of crunched, and everybody in the beginning was looking to them and saying, let's get with some of our lobbyist friends and start lobbying these state legislators as they go through this budgetary process so that we can get some ancillary funding to help these venues out. Well, that didn't happen, and Colorado Creative Industries budget was slashed in half, and school budgets were slashed, and police budgets were slashed. Everything was slashed, and we talked with the city of Denver about doing some things, and nothing going there. So we kind of did our pivot to really just focus on national initiatives right now. We share a lot of resources with each other. We look for grants. On a national side, NEVA is working on this Restart Act with Congress right now that would provide additional funding opportunities for small to medium-sized businesses, including those most hit by COVID, which is arts and entertainment. And then we're also working on some large fundraising activities to put together an emergency relief fund so we can try to save as many of these venues across the United States as possible.
The hashtag is it hashtag Save Our Stages?
That's correct. Hashtag
Okay.
Save Our Stages. Yeah,
Let's
and
check that out, please.
Yes, please. We are we're in peril right now. A month ago, we were saying that 90% of our venues had between 3 and 6 months before they would have to close their doors forever. That's now between 2 and 5 months, and next month it's 1 and 4, and it goes on and on and on. And this isn't conjecture. We're taking data sets from everyone, every venue that is a member, and we're measuring what their monthly nut is, and how much cash reserves they have and what their liquidity looks like, and can they make it. And we're going to lose venues. We're going to probably lose 30-40% of independent venues within the next 3 months without additional federal support.
It's heartbreaking. I'm sorry. I feel for you and his friends that have these businesses. I know I can't say I feel what they're going through, but I have empathy for what it is. And, on a very small level, my one person business, I had 60 events scheduled for the spring. That whole calendar got wiped out. That was half of my revenue for the year. And now it looks like the fall is going to be wiped out as well. So even if you can pivot to virtual, there's pivot again. We should just call this the Pivot Podcast.
Yeah, Pivot Cast.
Yeah, Pivot Cast. You're live on Pivot Cast. But even with that, pivoting to that, it's still not the revenue. It's still not the same. Yeah. It just never will be the same as being in person in the live events in live venues. And I saw a survey from Yelp, which I'm not a big fan of Yelp because I think a lot of people are just very nasty on Yelp.
Did you get some bad reviews?
No. No, all the reviews. Let me read the reviews here of your place. The best.
Oh, they're probably bad.
Yeah. Go enjoy it. It's wonderful. No, but it was about another small business, another sector of the economy that's getting slammed right now. Restaurants, and even some of them that are allowed to be open for takeout and so on. They're saying that a survey of restaurant owners said half of U.S. restaurants will be closed by the end of the year. That is shocking. And the domino effect of that, the knock-on effect of what that does for so many other industries. We could have a whole Pivot podcast just on that. But, I've all the venues I work with in New York. I mentioned the Plaza Hotel, a little bit different, but places like Gotham Hall. I don't know if you've ever been to these really smart visionaries took these old bank buildings from the 20s and 30s and turned them into gorgeous venues with unbelievable sound in them. Cipriani is one of them, but my friends at Gotham Hall have put together their own alliance like NEVA, and they're looking after those kind of event venues because they're saying they just put out a notice this morning. They're like, it's very clear that we're far from opening and there was no clear path ahead. That's probably one of those buzz phrases. But
yeah, lots of buzz phrases right now. Lots and lots.
Yeah. At the end of the Pivot podcast, we could have Pivot Bingo. And we'll get all the people together. We'll do a virtual bingo game and we'll have, I have Pivot, I have Path Forward, I have Unprecedented, I have it, bingo. What do I win? You win tickets to a concert that's not going to happen for 2 years, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned working with government officials, and at least one Denver City Council person called you a unique cultural asset. Don't we need, and don't blush, but that is high praise. And don't we need to protect our unique cultural assets in our cities like Denver? And how can you work with these people that already are fans of yours to help your stage and then to help other small businesses as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think my stage is we're probably good until next year. We're in a bit of a different position than a lot of the other, especially the smaller clubs in town. These 100 and 200 cap rooms that they cut their paychecks on Friday because they know they're going to make their money on the weekend for those checks to cash on Monday. these are the cultural institutions we don't talk about when we talk about cultural institutions. We usually think of museums and zoos, but, places like the Troubadour or, the High Dive in Denver, that they're critical spots that really help launch music careers. When we talk about independent venues going away, we're not talking about A-level artists that are playing these giant, huge stadiums and these Live Nation AEG shows nationally. But those people all came up through our stages. And this spider web of how the music industry works, we could have a 4-hour discussion on, all the pieces and how they connect and how they provide economic impact back to their communities. And I think the best way to say it is that if you take out all the F&B and ticket sales at every venue, there was a study done out of the University of Chicago 2 years ago that showed that every person who buys a ticket to a concert, on average, produces $12 of economic impact back to that community. That's bars, restaurants, Uber and Lyft rides, hotels. All of that economic impact is gone. So when the venues go away, it affects the restaurants, it affects the hotels, it affects everything. And this is the hard thing it is to explain to people, is that we're not talking about venues just go away and their doors are closed and it becomes, whatever it becomes when somebody else comes and leases it. We're talking about a devastating hit to an industry that provides in the state of Colorado $1.9 billion in economic impact every year. That's just the state of Colorado. And Colorado is not the most populous state in the union. When you get into New York, I don't know, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's in the multiple billions of economic impact every year. So the downfall effect of that, like you were talking about with restaurants, it's devastating. It's devastating.
It is. And when you're saying concerts, you're talking about small shows to gigantic events going on at Mile High Stadium, or I believe it's called Sports Authority Stadium now, or what's it called now?
I think it just got changed again. I don't know. Sports Authority went bankrupt.
It's still Mile High to me.
It's still Mile High to us too. But yeah, we're talking about every, that 1.9 billion is all of the arts and cultural activity that happens across the state of Colorado. Now, most of that happens in Denver. The independent venues that are part of NIVA in Denver, there's 69 NIVA members in the state of Colorado, and 35 of them are in Denver. Those venues alone produce $658 million in economic impact. And that does not include shows by Live Nation or AEG. You add those in, you're looking at probably $1 billion in economic impact just to the Denver metropolitan area, Denver Boulder metropolitan area.
And that's why you guys are out there lobbying to show that the impact from the jobs you create to the future jobs that you create with these. And I heard the same thing from our friends at NEVA in Austin, Texas, that they're saying these acts might start on a stage in Austin, but we help them to grow to, here's how you get to a national presence. Your friend Steven Sternshine was talking about that, how they look after the people, they look after the other venue owners. And that's probably why it was so natural that you were able to come together so quickly, because you're all kind of looking out for each other.
Yeah, we all of us we're all friends. We go to the same conferences together. We book the same artists. We put routes together with each other. And, we didn't have a voice. We didn't have a collective voice. We don't, as small independent venues, we don't have the ability to hire lobbyists individually to fight for us, nor would the voice really matter when you're talking about a 250 or even a 5,000 seat room. But when you get everybody together and you realize that collective voice and what we represent is so powerful, things start to steamroll, and NEVA happened in an amazingly short period of time.
Well, it's an incredible ecosystem, truly is an ecosystem. And you care not only about your own personal business, but from what I've seen, you truly care about the artists as well, because you need them. You need them. They need you. So it really does. You feed off each other.
Symbiotic relationships across the board. I mean, we do need each other. And, I don't think that the general public really understands the low margins that we operate on to begin with. So it wasn't
gold
like
mine. That place is a gold mine. That place is a gold mine. I'm like, do you have any idea? Do you have any idea the BS these guys put up with? And as you said before, the one person who wants one more beer and is slurring his words, and your bartender is smart enough to say, sorry, buddy, we're going to lose our license if I serve you that beer.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy's like, you don't tell me. I'm an American. I can have as many beers as I want. It's like, you can, out on the street, leave. And then to try to get that person to leave quietly, without force from your security or from you, can result in so much nonsense after the fact, whether it be lawsuits, whether it be fines from the city government, whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's everything that we do is difficult. And when you're bringing in thousands of people into a venue, there's bound to be issues from time to time. And like I said earlier, with masks, if we have an opportunity to reopen, we'll require masks, and we have to prepare ourselves for those tough conversations. And social distancing and sticking in your pod and not, everything that's going to change about live music when we're open again. Because it's not like we're just going to turn that switch on and everything is going to go back to how it was pre-COVID. It's this is a long game for us.
There is no switch that people think that, like, oh, we're back. And there's another factor in safety. With the masks on, you can't see who that is half the time. Mm-hmm. Which could cause there could be somebody who is banned from the club, and now they're coming in with this like full face mask, and you're like, we can't tell if that's that person that busted up the place a couple months ago or whatever, or could be there, or could be wanted for something else, and they're like, we're going to go to a concert tonight just to cause problems. And it's insane. The amount of extra security that's going to cause you, and
and security is not cheap. It's not cheap at all. You gotta hire the right security company and people who have guard cards and all that other stuff. And those are not $10 an hour employees. It's a pricey amount that we're paying for them.
With what's happening with reform in police departments in major cities across the country, I'm sure that when it comes down to security at concert venues, there is going to be a new level of training, which is just going to cost you guys more money.
Everything costs us more money. I mean, the PPE stuff that we have to do alone is going to cost us a lot of money. We've talked in our NEVA circles a lot about, a lot of these venues are struggling just to keep their doors open. So if we can find money to help them keep their doors open, and now they got to do a show, how do they prepare the venue for that? If they already don't have money to keep their doors open, and now they got to go spend another $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on all the stuff that comes into. I'm sorry. I had
some kids and families coming in the room. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Pivot Podcast.
This is the Pivot Podcast. This is the Pivot Podcast for sure. But yeah, it's really hard to try to think about what things are going to look like. But that's our job right now. We've got to start putting together plans that make sense. We have to prepare ourselves for everything coming our way.
Well, in the meantime, in that symbiotic relationship with your artists, is there value to having a virtual series of music with your artists to keep them relevant, to keep the brand name of your pavilion out there? And are you an advocate for that or not?
We're doing one. I think most people that I know are doing some kind of virtual programming, whether it's live streams, pre-recorded streams, old recordings from performances at your venue or from somebody else's venue. I think the novelty wore off after the first 30 days. It's not the same. It's like trying to grab energy from an artist by listening to their song on Spotify versus going to watch them live. There's something about this connection that artists and fans share in a live show. And you see it. I mean, we've all been to shows where the energy isn't there, and it's either from the audience or the band, and you get out of there and you're just like, man, that really sucked. That's kind of how I feel about live streaming. I think it's a novelty. And there's not really a pathway for the artist or the venues that provide the type of monetary funding you want to see out of those. They're expensive to produce, and they don't, I don't know. I don't know what the end goal is for them other than to potentially keep the artist relevant. And that makes sense if an artist can push out songs, but we need live music. We crave that as human beings. I mean, we don't go to the online Louvre Museum. We go to Paris and we go to the Louvre. It's different when you see the Mona Lisa live than when you look at a picture of it online. Yeah. And it's same to be said for everything.
Happy Bastille Day, by the way. On that note, I knew you wanted to celebrate it, so we let it out there. Everybody's thinking of France Day. Well, it's. I know I'm just looking at the time here, so I will. I went over, so I will just ask a couple quick questions there. So lately, we've seen, for at least from what I've read in the Denver Post, I don't know if that's your paper of record or not, that you like to, if that's real news or, as they say, fake news in Denver. But from what I've seen, the cases of COVID-19 are up, at least infections are up. And of course, that could be because they just got more tests. And the tests were not very readily available in May, and people have been walking around with it. And this is part of the spike everywhere. I understand that. But hospitalizations are up, which is the alarming part. And that's what we saw here in New York. And that's where the real crisis comes in. But if another spike happens, if a second occurrence really happens this fall or next year, and we still don't have a vaccine, do you think we just all have to say, put your mask on, wash your hands, and go about your normal life? Because in my opinion, it doesn't seem like we could shut down completely for another few months again and have any hope of recovering in the next 5 years. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. It's tough as an industry. We can't afford another shutdown. But then we get into life quality issues, and how do you measure that? And I do not envy the politicians that have to consider these factors. I was on a call with Senator Michael Bennet about a month and a half ago, and he said to us that in the beginning, when COVID hit, the federal government was trying to figure out a way to freeze our economy for 6 months. And I think if the federal government could have figured out a way to freeze our economy for 6 months, and we all would have been staying home, we'd be in a much better position than we are. So what we're seeing right now is that this failure of leadership is having this trickle-down effect on all of us. If the music industry can't reopen in the spring of 2021, it's going to be a long way before we see what we're used to seeing. It's going to be a long road to recovery.
Right. And do you think that if there was a vaccine today that you could reopen this fall? And do you think people will be comfortable coming back into a place like Levitt this fall?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a place like Levitt's nice because it's all outdoor, and it's, there's 84,000 square feet of lawn for the audience. So some venues have that unique ability to be able to social distance properly and also not share HVAC systems or anything else that could allow them to operate. But is it going to look like it did pre-COVID, where, what kind of energy exchange is going to be between the audience and the artist when you can't come up to the crash barriers, and those are the questions we don't have answers to right now. I think it's really hard for me to think about that because there's, we all grew up with this expectation of what live music was like and what it should look like and what it should feel like. And I'm afraid for these changes. I'm afraid for what it's going to do.
Right. And back to what you said there about, and can virtual concerts, can they replace it? No. I will watch, I remember watching Coldplay concert, but at Hollywood Bowl, and I watched the concert afterwards on DVD or something. This is 15 years ago. And remembering how awesome that was with a great sound system. But you're even watching it on TV, you're feeding off the 30,000 people in the crowd. And Rattle and Hum or something like that, where they made a movie out of a concert, or Bruce Springsteen or somebody live, you're still feeding off of that. I love Bruce. I love U2. I love Coldplay. But I'm not watching Coldplay's 2.5-hour concert on Zoom. I'm just not doing it. I love Jim Gaffigan, but and other comedians and Dave Chappelle. But comedy is really tough over this type of event, this type of platform, because it's so flat. It just is.
And I think that's the
Good
first
for
thing
conversations.
I think that's the first thing we're actually bringing back to our venue is going to be comedy. Denver has a pretty strong comedy scene here, and we produce the great racist Roseanne Barr. So
she is one of the top 10 racists in the country right now. So congratulations.
Yeah, but we have a great comedy scene here, and that's one thing that we think we can do, because we can get down to 50 to 100 people and try to make it more intimate and see what happens out of it. And maybe comedy is where the entire bring back of live events happens. I don't know.
Yeah. Smaller groups. Well, I think we know what your next lecture is going to be on. COVID, your first lecture in the fall, because it doesn't look like there's going to be college football. So at Colorado, you guys they're going to be looking for some really good content. So you've got lots of great lecture topics. You're going to be filling the football stadium, one every 6 seats, of course, by doing these lectures, because that's the kind of content that they're going to be looking for.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, well, look, I have taken an hour of your time, so we'll wrap it up here. I was just going to have you promote a few things. So just going to say, so Chris, Zach, or Chris, thank you so much for being with us. How can we find out more about Levitt Pavilion and more about Save Our Stages with our good friends at NEVA? What can we do? Tell us how to find out more about this.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, NEVA is Levitt's super important to me, but NEVA is the push right now that we really need everybody's help. You can visit it NEVA.org. And I'll use the hashtag #SaveOurStages on any social media post that you do about music, and please sign on to the Restart Act. We've got a page on there where you can easily, it takes 30 seconds to sign your name to this letter that goes directly to congressional leaders. You can learn more about Levitt Pavilion at levittdenver.org. We don't have any events right now, but if you want to learn about us and who we are and what we do, levittdenver.org.
And we hope that you come back with comedy soon. And you are such a Gen Xer because you said pound instead of hashtag. I love it.
I did.
I appreciate
that. I know.
You're showing your age, Chris.
I'm not used to all this stuff, man. The interwebs.
Yeah, all those interwebs. And on social, can we find you guys on Instagram?
Yeah, both NEVA and Levitt are on Instagram, Levitt_Denver. And I can't remember NEVA's. It's just at NEVA, I believe. And then we're also available on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere you go. It's just Levitt_Denver.
All right. And the artwork behind you, I'm just looking at it. It looks a little like COVID, but is that
fractals?
What is that?
It's fractals. It's yeah, I've got a friend who paints those, and they're just kind of groovy. I like them. all the art in my house is original, so I try to find artists that I like and buy their stuff.
All the art in your house is original, and all the art at your great Levitt Pavilion will be original and back again as soon as it's safe to do so. Thanks for looking out for all these artists and those venues. This is another episode of Festival Pass Stories. Chris Zacher, thank you so much for the time, and we look forward to getting out to Denver when we can travel again and come to a show at Levitt Pavilion. All right, man.
Absolutely. Thanks. Love to have you. Thanks for doing this.
This is Festival Past Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next.